Let me tell you a story about a girl no one ever really noticed, until the day she saved everyone. Emma wiped the last coffee stain from the marble counter and glanced at the clock. 3:27 p.m. The bank cafe was calmer than usual. A soft hum of printers, quiet conversations, and the faint clinking of cups filled the air. She loved this corner cafe inside the luxury bank. Not because of the money around her, but because this was the only place where she felt useful. Emma, table 3 wants another espresso, her manager called. On it, she replied, forcing a smile. At table 3 sat Alexander Cole, the billionaire everyone in the city knew about. Perfect suit, silver watch, cold eyes. He was scrolling through his phone, a leather folder placed beside him. A huge deal was about to be signed upstairs. Hundreds of millions. Everyone whispered about it. But Emma's eyes weren't on him. They were on the black security camera above the entrance. The tiny red light was off. She frowned. Maybe it's nothing, she told herself. Maybe they're doing maintenance. Still, something felt wrong. The camera over the teller desks was off too. No blinking light, just a dead black eye staring into nothing. Emma felt a soft chill move up her spine. She walked to the back counter, pretending to arrange cups. From there, she could see the entrance better. 2 men had just walked in. Heavy jackets, caps pulled low. No one else seemed to notice them. But Emma noticed the way they didn't look around like normal customers. They scanned, measured, counted. Her heartbeat picked up. "Excuse me?" The bank manager, Mr. Lewis, passed by. "Emma, what are you staring at?" "Sir." "The cameras." She swallowed. "They're off. And those men. Something feels weird." Mr. Lewis followed her gaze, shrugged, and adjusted his tie. "It's probably IT doing tests. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the cafe. Okay?" He walked away before she could answer. Emma pressed her lips together. Don't worry about it. That was what people always told her. She was just a waitress, a small person in a big world of money. Still, the uneasy feeling grew heavier in her chest. She looked back at the men. They stood near the entrance, not approaching any teller, not grabbing a ticket, not even talking, just watching. Emma picked up the espresso and walked toward Alexander's table, trying to act normal. Her hands trembled slightly, so she tightened her grip on the tray. "Your double espresso, sir," she said softly. He glanced up just long enough to nod, then went back to his phone. Emma hesitated. Should she say it? What if she was wrong? What if she sounded stupid? For a moment, the entire bank felt too quiet. The world slowed. The ticking of the wall clock sounded unnaturally loud in her ears. She leaned in just enough for him to hear. "Sir," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "The cameras are disabled." Alexander's fingers stopped moving over his screen. He slowly looked up at her. "What did you say?" he asked, his tone sharp, annoyed. She swallowed hard, feeling her heart pound so loud she could hear it. "The cameras," Emma repeated, glancing quickly at the one over the entrance. "They're off, and I think something bad is about to happen." For the first time, the billionaire's eyes truly focused on her. His expression shifted from irritation to confusion, and then, just for a second, to something that looked like concern. Behind Emma, one of the men near the door reached into his jacket, and the air in the bank turned heavy, like the moment just before a storm hits. To be continued. Chapter 2, When Fear Meets Arrogance. Alexander studied Emma with a mixture of disbelief and irritation. "You think something bad is about to happen?" he repeated slowly. "Because a light on a camera is off?" Emma felt her cheeks burn. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe this was how poor people looked, paranoid for no reason. But she forced herself to stand her ground. "It's not just the cameras," she whispered. "Those men at the door. They've been watching everyone. They haven't moved to the teller. They haven't even taken a number." Alexander leaned back in his chair and glanced at the entrance, casual but controlled, like a man used to calculating risks. He noticed them. 2 men. No documents. No phones. Heavy jackets in mildly warm weather. hands hidden. His jaw tightened, just a little. Probably just customers, he muttered, more to himself than to her. Sir? Emma pressed, her voice full of quiet urgency. You come here a lot. Have you ever seen the cameras off before? That question landed. He thought back. Meetings, signatures, documents, contracts. Dozens of times in this very building. Security here was always perfect. Almost obsessive. No, he had never seen any cameras off. He looked up at the cameras again. Dead. Motionless. For a brief moment, memories flashed through his mind. Of cramped apartments. Of his father counting coins at an old kitchen table. Of his father whispering. People lose everything when they ignore the little signs. Alex. Alexander swallowed, pushing the memory away. He wasn't that poor boy anymore. He was the one who owned buildings like this now. He cleared his throat. Thank you for telling me, he said in a low voice. Go to the back somewhere safe. I'll mention it to the manager. Emma nodded, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Something in her heart resisted the idea of just hiding. She took a half step back toward the counter, eyes never leaving the two men. Then it happened. The first man reached fully into his jacket. A flash of black metal. A gun. Everybody down, he shouted, his voice exploding through the lobby like a bomb. Time shattered. People screamed. A woman dropped her purse. Coins scattered across the marble floor. A child began crying. The second man locked the front doors, pulling down the security latch with a sharp clank. Emma froze. Her mind went blank for a heartbeat. Then survival instinct slammed into her chest. Get down! Alexander suddenly grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind his table, using his own body as a shield. The gunman fired once into the ceiling. The sound was deafening. White dust rained from the shattered panel above, and people threw themselves to the floor, hands over their heads. You move, you die! The second robber shouted, waving his gun wildly. Emma's breathing turned shallow. Her fingers dug into the carpet. Her heart hammered against the side of her chest so hard it hurt. Alexander, still crouched in front of her, turned his head just enough to speak. You were right, he muttered. Stay low. Don't do anything stupid. But Emma could see everything from between the chair legs. The layout, the tellers, the panic, the robbers. One gunman pointed his weapon at the manager. You, he snarled. Vault. Now. Mr. Lewis, shaking from head to toe, nodded and obeyed. Emma's eyes darted to the side door behind the counter, the one that led to the staff hallway. She knew that hallway. It led to the small kitchen, the restroom, and the emergency alarm panel. Her stomach twisted. She knew what she could do. She also knew what might happen if she tried. For a few seconds, the sounds of crying, shouting, and the robber's orders blurred into a distant echo. All she heard was her own heartbeat and a single thought pounding in her mind. If no one does anything, we might all die here. She looked at Alexander. He looked terrified. The billionaire everyone feared suddenly looked human. She leaned closer and whispered, her voice trembling. There's an emergency alarm in the staff corridor, behind the cafe. I can get to it. His eyes widened. Are you insane? He hissed. They'll shoot you. Maybe, she whispered. But if I don't try. She didn't finish the sentence. The gunman yanked the manager toward the vault. The second robber climbed onto a chair, firing another shot into the ceiling. Phones on the floor. Nobody moves, he roared. Emma drew in a shaky breath. In that moment between fear and courage, between staying small and standing up, she made a choice. She slowly slid flat against the floor, crawling toward the cafe counter. Alexander reached out to grab her arm, but she had already slipped out of his reach. Emma, he whispered harshly. She didn't look back. Every inch forward felt like a mile. Every second stretched, heavy and fragile. If one of them looked down, if one foot shifted in her direction, but they didn't. Not yet. Her fingers touched the edge of the counter. She was almost at the staff door when a shadow fell across her path. A pair of heavy boots stopped inches from her face. She slowly lifted her eyes and found herself staring at the second robber. His gun was pointed right at her. To be continued. Chapter 3: The Girl on the Floor. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The robber stared down at Emma, anger and suspicion burning in his eyes. His jaw clenched. Veins bulged in his neck. "Well, well," he growled. "Where do you think you're going, little waitress?" The whole bank felt like it shrank into one tiny space, between the barrel of his gun and Emma's face. Her mouth went dry. Her fingers dug into the carpet. I dropped something," she whispered, barely able to control the shaking in her voice. "My phone. I was just trying to get back to the counter." He laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. "Stand up," he ordered. Slowly, Emma pushed herself to her feet, hands raised. The room spun for a moment, but she forced herself to stay focused. One wrong move and it would all be over. From behind a knocked-over chair, Alexander watched, helpless and furious. His heart pounded in his throat. He had seen markets crash, companies collapse, people cry over losing their jobs, but he had never seen someone stare down a gun with eyes full of both fear and courage. He suddenly hated how useless he felt. "Get back there," the robber barked, shoving Emma toward the center of the room. "On the floor with the rest of them. You want to play hero? Huh." Emma stumbled, nearly falling. As she walked, she caught Alexander's gaze. For a second, their eyes locked. He shook his head slightly, silently begging her not to try anything else. But deep inside, Emma wasn't done. The first robber returned from the direction of the vault, dragging Mr. Lewis with him. "The vault's opening," he announced. "We've got a few minutes. Keep them quiet." The second robber grabbed a young woman by the arm and yanked her up. "You," he snapped, "empty the safe drawers." A child started crying louder. His mother tried to hush him, but her own hands were shaking uncontrollably. Emma's chest tightened at the sound. Fear, anger, and something like stubborn hope twisted together inside her. These people didn't deserve this. None of them did. And if no one did anything, these men would walk out rich. And invisible scars would live in every person here for years. A thought came to her suddenly, like a spark in the dark. They think I'm weak, harmless, useless. Maybe that was her chance. She lifted her hand slightly. "Please," she said, trying to sound scared and submissive. "Let me help. I work here. I can move faster behind the counter. The staff knows me. They'll listen. No one will cause trouble if I'm the one collecting things." The robber frowned. He hadn't expected that. He glanced at his partner, who was busy yelling at the tellers. "Do it," the first robber called over, not even looking at Emma. "Faster we're done, the better." The second robber grabbed Emma by the arm and shoved her toward the teller area. "Try anything," he warned, his voice low and venomous. "And I swear you won't make it to the door." Emma nodded quickly, eyes lowered. "I understand." Inside, her mind was racing. Behind the teller desks was the short hallway that led straight to the staff kitchen. And in that kitchen wall, hidden behind a framed Employee of the Month photo, was the emergency alarm panel. Emma moved from desk to desk, collecting wallets, phones, and jewelry as instructed. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to keep breathing, keep moving, keep acting like she was just obeying. All the while, she inched closer to that hallway. Alexander watched every step from behind his overturned chair. He could see her plan now. His stomach twisted with fear. But there was something else there too. Admiration. How could someone who earned in a month what he spent on dinner be braver than all of them? As Emma neared the hallway, the robber snapped, "Stay where I can see you." She froze. "Please," she said meekly, pointing to the back. "There's a staff drawer with more cash. If you want everything, I can unlock it. They won't argue if I'm the one doing it." The robber hesitated. Greed flickered in his eyes. More money, less work. "Fine," he muttered. "Go. But I'm right behind you." Emma turned, heart pounding so loudly it almost drowned out everything else. They stepped into the narrow staff corridor. Each step echoed. 1, 2, 3. At the end of the corridor, the kitchen door stood slightly open. The familiar smell of coffee beans and cleaning supplies floated out. And behind that wall, behind that smiling photo, was the one thing that could turn this nightmare around. She just had to reach it, before he reached her. To be continued. Chapter 4: The Silent Alarm and the Loudest Choice. The kitchen felt strangely calm compared to the chaos in the lobby. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft drip from the coffee machine, a rag hanging off the sink. But Emma barely saw any of it. Her eyes went straight to the framed Employee of the Month photo on the wall. A photo of a former barista smiling proudly. Behind it was the alarm panel. "Where's the drawer?" the robber demanded, gun still aimed at her. "Don't try to be smart." Emma forced herself to walk to the counter first, opening a small metal drawer filled with rolled coins and some bills. She pulled it out. "Here," she said, hands shaking. "This is the small cash. The bigger bundles are behind that photo. Manager doesn't like everyone seeing them." The robber narrowed his eyes. He didn't trust her, but he trusted money. He stepped closer, still pointing the gun, and jerked his chin toward the wall. "Take it down," he ordered. Emma's fingers trembled as she reached for the frame. The glass was cool under her skin. She lifted it just enough to expose the white metal panel behind it. The alarm panel, a row of small buttons, one red switch. Her throat tightened. If she hit it, a silent signal would go straight to the police. But the instant the robber realized what she'd done, she might not have time to breathe again. For a moment, her reflection flickered in the glass of the frame she was still holding. She saw a tired girl. Poor girl. A girl the world had learned to ignore. "I'm tired of being invisible," she thought. With one smooth motion, she shifted the frame, as if looking for a keyhole. "Faster!" the robber snapped, stepping closer. She could feel the barrel of the gun almost brushing her shoulder. She inhaled slowly. Then, with her thumb hidden behind the edge of the frame, she pressed the red switch. Tiny click. No sound. No flashing light. Nothing. Outside the bank, far in the distance, a system woke up. Inside the bank, the robber grunted impatiently. "Open it." Emma let the frame drop slightly to hide the panel again. "It's stuck," she said, acting frustrated. "The manager always has trouble with this too. Can you pull it from the other side?" He stepped closer, reached out, and grabbed the frame with his free hand. That was her chance. Emma spun toward the counter, pretending to lose her balance, and crashed into a stack of metal trays. They clattered to the floor with a deafening crash. "What are you doing?" he shouted. But he'd already taken his eyes off the kitchen door. Back in the lobby, everyone flinched at the noise. Alexander's head snapped up. She did something, he thought, his heart racing. The robber grabbed Emma by the arm and yanked her forward. Furious. "You think I'm stupid?" he hissed into her face. "You make one wrong move again and—" He didn't finish, because at that exact moment, faint but growing louder sirens began to wail in the distance. The sound sliced through the air like a knife of hope. The robber froze. His eyes widened. "No, no, no." He dragged Emma back toward the corridor, using her as a shield. As they reached the lobby, the other robber spun around. "What happened?" he barked. "The cops!" the second robber snapped. "Someone hit an alarm." Panic exploded in the room again, but this time, it burned on the criminals' faces too. Alexander saw Emma stumble out of the hallway. The robber's arm locked around her neck, the gun pressed to her side. Something inside him snapped. Maybe it was guilt for all the moments in his life when he had turned away from suffering because it wasn't his problem. Maybe it was the memory of his father saying, "Money doesn't make you a man, Alex. What you do when others are in danger does." He slowly stood up from behind the chair, raising his hands. "Stop," he said loudly, his voice echoing in the silence. The robber whipped his gun toward him, dragging Emma closer. "Sit down," he shouted. "Everyone stays down or she dies." Alexander didn't sit. He took a single step forward. "You don't want murder on your record," he said firmly. "You wanted money. Fine. You've got some. But once you hurt someone, this stops being about robbery. It becomes a lifetime you can never escape. The robber's hand trembled slightly. Emma could feel his heart pounding against her back. Outside, the sirens were closer now. So close you could almost feel the vibration in the marble floor. "Shut up!" the robber yelled. But there was fear in his voice now. Confusion. Desperation. The first robber grabbed a bag stuffed with cash. Eyes darting to the sealed doors, the windows, the growing shadows of flashing lights outside. "We're trapped," he muttered. Emma swallowed. She knew this was the moment everything would break. One way or another. If the robber panicked, if he fired even once, could all end in blood and screaming. She had one last card to play. Her voice. She took a slow breath, feeling the gun dig into her ribs. "You don't have to do this," she said softly, just loud enough for them, and everyone to hear. "You can still walk out of this alive. You can still choose to stop." The robber laughed, but his laughter cracked in the middle. "You think they're going to let us walk?" he whispered in her ear. "Look at all this." He tightened his grip. Emma closed her eyes for a second, then opened them, tears shining but steady. "Then at least, don't make it worse," she said. "Don't kill anyone. Don't become that person." Outside, car doors slammed. Officers shouted orders. Inside, every soul waited on a knife's edge. The decision now sat in the robbers' shaking hands. To be continued. Chapter 5: Invisible People, Unforgettable Heroes. For a long, suspended second, no one moved. Emma could feel the robber's breath on her neck. Hot, unsteady, afraid. Everyone was watching him. The mother holding her son. The tellers on the floor. The billionaire standing tall with his hands raised. Outside, the sirens stopped. A voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the police. Drop your weapons and release the hostages." The robber flinched. His partner cursed under his breath and glanced around, looking for an exit that didn't exist. Emma swallowed hard. "You're scared," she whispered to the man holding her. "I can feel it. You didn't wake up wanting to be a killer today, did you?" "Shut up," he muttered. But there was no real anger left, just fear and regret. "You still have a choice," she continued, her voice breaking but steady. "This moment, this is the one you remember for the rest of your life. You can either remember the day you destroyed everything, or the day you decided to stop before it was too late." His grip loosened just a fraction. Alexander watched, stunned. This girl, this waitress he barely knew, was doing something he, with all his power and money, had never had the courage to do. Look a desperate man in the eye, and speak to what was left of his humanity. The first robber swore and lifted his gun. "We're not walking out of here if we surrender," he shouted. "They'll bury us." Emma turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes too. "Maybe," she said, "but at least you'll still be alive. At least you won't have the blood of innocent people on your hands. You can still face your family one day. You can still look in a mirror." Silence. Her words seemed to hang in the air, heavier than the weight of the guns. Then, something shifted. The robber behind her exhaled shakily. The barrel of the gun moved away from her ribs. His fingers opened. The gun clattered to the floor. Everyone flinched. The sound felt louder than the ceiling shots. The first robber stared at his partner, shocked. "What are you doing?" he shouted. His partner's voice cracked. I can't," he said. "I didn't sign up to kill anyone. I can't." The police outside shouted again. "Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up." The first robber's eyes darted between the hostages, the doors, the gun on the floor, and Emma. She stood there, shaking but upright, staring back at him with eyes full of fear, and something he didn't expect. Pity. He let out a broken laugh. "I guess this is it then," he muttered. Slowly, he lowered his gun too. He placed it carefully on the floor and raised his hands. One by one, people in the bank began to sob, from relief this time, not terror. The doors were unlocked. Officers stormed in, shouting orders, securing the scene, handcuffing the robbers. The entire bank dissolved into a blur of uniforms, questions, and crying. In the middle of it all, Emma's knees finally gave out. She sank to the floor, breathing hard. "Easy," a calm voice said. She looked up. Alexander was there, kneeling beside her. His perfect suit was wrinkled, his hair slightly out of place. His hands were shaking too, but his eyes were different. He wasn't looking at her like a waitress anymore. He was looking at her like someone who had just saved his life. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head weakly. "Just scared." He let out a breathy, relieved laugh. "Me too," he admitted. "And I'm supposed to be the powerful one." Paramedics moved around them. Police officers were taking statements. But in that tiny island of stillness on the floor, it was just them. "You pressed the alarm, didn't you?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "I thought they'd kill you," he said, voice low. "You risked everything." Emma looked down at her trembling hands. "I couldn't just watch," she whispered. "Someone had to do something." "Someone," he repeated, studying her. "You mean you." Later that day, the news would explode. Waitress saves bank from robbery. Billionaire saved by cafe workers' courage. Poor girl, big heart. The hero no one expected. Cameras, working cameras this time, would crowd around Emma. Reporters would shove microphones in her face. People who had never even learned her name before would suddenly want to hear every word she said. But in that first quiet moment, before the headlines, before the interviews, Alexander made a decision. A decision that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with respect. A few days later, he walked back into the same bank cafe. Emma was behind the counter, back in her simple uniform, tying her apron. She looked up, surprised. "Mr. Cole," she said softly. He smiled, a real human smile. "Alexander," he corrected gently. "Please. It's the least I can do for the woman who saved my life." Her cheeks flushed. "I didn't do it for you," she said honestly. "I did it for everyone." "I know," he replied. "That's exactly why it matters." He set a folder on the counter. "I've been thinking," he continued. "People like you are the reason people like me survive our own arrogance. We don't see you. We don't listen. But you see everything." He pushed the folder toward her. Inside was a scholarship offer. A job opportunity in his company's security training team. A chance to study, to grow, to never be just a waitress again unless she wanted to be. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's not enough," he answered. "But it's a start." For a moment, she just stared at the papers. Then she lifted her gaze and smiled. "Thank you," she said. "But promise me something." "Anything," he replied. "Never ignore the people you think are small," she said softly. "Sometimes, they're the ones holding everything together." He nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking into him. "I promise," he said, and for once it wasn't just a rich man's promise. It was a man who had been saved by someone invisible, finally seeing clearly. If you were in that bank, scared, helpless, watching everything unfold, do you think you would have stayed down like everyone else, or tried to do something like Emma did? Backhand index pointing right, be honest. What do you think you would do in a moment like this? Freeze, run, or step up? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your answers might be more powerful than you think.